Welcome, everybody. I am your host, Liam Murphy, here to talk about the NFL schedule that is released and to rip a best ball draft on Underdog, a best ball Mania 5. So let's get it. Thanks for being here, everybody. So yes, we got the NFL schedule last night, as I have every year. I put together a cheat sheet to share it. Fun fact, the year after I won Best Ball Mania 2, I was like the only person to tweet out a schedule the night of, and now, I was like probably one of, I don't know, 50 people to put together a playoff schedule for you. And I didn't even do it until the morning after. So it just shows you how much best ball has changed and how much focus there is now on the NFL playoff schedule. If you're confused, just for the new timers, why do we care about the NFL playoff schedule? Well, for sites like Underdog and DraftKings playoff formats, it's when the money is won, especially week 17. And the thought is that, an edge I've tried to target over the past couple of years and is now pretty popular is you should be targeting week 17 game stacks, or perhaps targeting a defense you think is bad. Of course, like Amon-Ra, Rashad Penny was a combo I needed to have to win BBM2, a little mini stack there. I was big on Rashad Penny and Chris Carson that year because they played the Detroit Lions week 17, Seattle's running backs. And I thought the Lions' run defense was terrible. It was bad the last year. They didn't do much to change it, right? Like, that's not rocket science. So thanks, everyone, for being here. We're going to talk through this schedule a little bit. I'll put together a video strictly on the schedule, probably later this week. But for now, this is it. I've linked it here. You can also find it at my site, beatbestball.com. And this schedule here, if you follow the Twitter link, I put it together like this. I also put together the individual things. If you want to screenshot this and put it as like your phone background or whatever. There's a lot of talk about, should we care about week 15, week 16, week 17, especially with the payouts being flatter week 17. My first year I played best ball, I tried to really focus on all of the weeks 15, 16, and 17. The year I won BBM2, I mainly focused on week 17 with the mindset of it's going to be a happy accident if I end up either a week 16 game stack, a week 15 game stack. You're competing against much smaller pods when you do anyways. So like, I'm not going to go out of my way to try to have like week 16 game stacks where I only need to beat 15 lineups. I really want to focus on, for these top heavy contests, the week 17, if I believe there's an edge there, because, an EV of a finals ticket is like 18 grand. Less than 10% of the people who make the Best Ball Mania 5 finals, for example, will make more than the EV of their ticket, meaning less than 10% of the field makes more than 18 grand in real life EV, in real life dollars. So that shows you, to me, like, is it important to make the week 17, make the finals? Of course it is. Is it more important when the payouts are flatter? Yes. Is it still a very top-heavy contest that if there's anything you can do to try to reach first in the finals, you need to pull that lever? Yes, I still believe that. I still believe week 17 is the most important, but we'll have more on schedule minutia as we go. This is it for now. The green teams are the dome games. Of course, some of these teams probably will have good weather as well. A team like Detroit at San Francisco, like, you're not going to expect Snow there. Whereas another team, Miami at Cleveland, maybe that puts you a little bit towards the Miami running backs if it is going to be a snowstorm versus their passing game. And so, yeah, this is here. We'll talk about this more as we go. I'm going to, on my site, I think I've drafted, let's get into this. I drafted 27 BBM5 teams so far. 3 since the schedule's released. So I had 24 teams before the schedule. And what I think I'm going to do for an article is I'm going to review either all 24 or most of them on my site at beatbestball.com. And just going to review like what week 17 stacks I fell into. I think it will be a nice baseline for those who are kind of curious, because just anecdotally, it's my belief that you're going to fall into some week 17 game stacks. And I got a couple to show you here. This team drafted on May 1st, so this was 2 days after the contest came out, is an example where I got Josh Allen and Matthew Stafford, and I ended up with both these quarterbacks game stacked for week 17. The Bills play the Jets. The Rams play the Cardinals, a game I'm definitely excited about. Should be kind of fast-paced, depending what the Rams do, in a dome. And I got, in the Rams game, I got Stafford, Trey Benson, Blake Corum, Marvin Harrison Jr., Cooper Kupp, and Demarcus Robinson. So fully game stacked there. And in the Bills game, I got Josh, I got Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, Kincaid, and Conklin. So the full Bills passing game, and then a Conklin bring back there. Also, to fall into any other game stacks there? No. I think, let me see. There's one more here. Is this it? No. Here's another example where I have a Stroud and May team. The Texans play the Ravens, and I got a Stroud, Nico, Tank, and Flower start. So fell into a game stack there. Pretty nice. And then didn't end up with any Chargers. So the Pat side not stacked up. But do we fall into any minis? We did not. Because actually we did. Because Brock Bowers plays the Saints. So we got a little mini there as well. And any others? No. But, so just an example of, you're going to fall into some week 17 game stacks, at least some minis for teams before the schedule even came out. And it's also my belief that, looking at the schedule here, if you look at a team like, let's find a mismatch here, most likely. Chiefs versus Pitt. That's a game that could be a complete blowout, right? Where, maybe Pitt hangs in, they got a decent defense, but it's possible Kansas City scores 30 points in that game and the Steelers score 10 or less, right? Like, everyone knows that's possible. Is that a game I think you should be forcing a bring back in? No, right? Definitely not, because we just know that the Chiefs can score a lot of points, and you do not need to have Calvin Austin III on your team. Is it nice if you fall into a bring back? Sure, but I wouldn't force it. Similar to, what's another game that looks like kind of a mismatch? Tampa at Carolina. Is that one where you need to force a bring back? I would say no, right? Like, the Panthers are probably the worst team in the NFL. If you fall into Jonathan Brooks, if you fall into Chuba, great, but you don't have to force it. On that note, I just want, stacking division opponents is something I think is sharp to do before the schedule comes out. And let's just see some hits you got there if you did that. Arizona at Rams, 1. So you fell into that one. Buffalo Jets, 2. So you fell into that one. Carolina Tampa, 3. So you fell into that one. Dallas Philly, 4. So you fell into that one. Green Bay Minnesota, 5. By the way, Green Bay plays Minnesota week 17, like I think literally 3 out of the past 4 years or something. Absurd. Jacksonville, Tennessee, 5. You fell into that one. And that might be it for division opponents that are playing each other. So, that's a pretty sizable amount of teams. I think that's a little bit above usual. But yeah, if you're good at best ball, do not jump in this draft. If you're not, you are welcome to. We're going to be doing a BBM 5 now that we have the schedule. People have asked me things like, hey, do you, like, someone asked me in my Discord, do you do anything for strength of schedule? And I'm someone who's willing to grind a micro edge if I think it exists, such as how good I think your defense is, right? And an example was me targeting the Seahawks running backs when they played the Lions. But I also think there's a line where we're getting too cute and there might not be, like, you might just be over, like, creating too much data points that frankly are not that important, right? So it's just well known that strength of schedule year to year is not that sticky in the NFL. Teams can be terrible one year and great the next. Example, the Texans. Teams can be good one year and terrible the next, right? So that's a micro edge that falls under the too cute bucket to me personally. But let's get some of these comments. Do I use a extension? No, I'm not someone who believes in extensions for best ball. In fact, I think that extensions and sites that push those is a sticky slope where we're one step away from having a sharp auto drafter, which is terrible, absolutely terrible for the best ball ecosystem. If you're someone who spends your time drafting fast drafts, and a big allure of best ball is the fact that all these sharks in the DFS waters, all these, just richer people who couldn't be bothered to spend an hour drafting a team. You do not want those people to just be able to buy an extension and build them sharp drafted teams. That's terrible, right? I think that's a big allure of best ball, that you're mostly competing against people who are just, willing to put in the time. They like drafting. They're not doing it purely for EV, which, I think it's fine to do it purely for EV, but I do not support extensions and anything like that. And I think the sites should ban them and be wary of them. You've seen this for online poker, how the sticky slope is, and like online poker, there's like almost no confidence in it right now that you're not being cheated. And I think an extension, makes it far more likely. Like, I don't think collusion's a concern, but if you had like 3 auto drafting robots together that were colluding together, I think it becomes a bigger concern because it removes the time constraint. But enough on that. Looking jacked in your thumbnail. Thanks, brother. I did one of these tricks where you push up the bicep, took everything in me. Let's go. Good morning. Let's look at some more of my completed teams. I'm going to jump into this draft in a little bit. This morning I drafted against Davis, and let's actually get into this and fix this on my end. I've reached out to Underdog to fix this. I don't think it's high up on their to-do list, but if you go into rankings and position limits, if you have a player queued, to me, any player you put in the queue should override anything, including your position limits. Unfortunately, that is not how it works. Where, for example, I put a player in the queue at a wide receiver position on a team I started with like 4 running backs early, so I wanted to stop at 4. since my position limits have 8, and I've set my position limits so that if I were to fall asleep or just miss a notification and fully auto draft a draft, it would not kill me because almost certainly the team would be kind of running back heavy. So I'd want to have more wideouts. But I'm going to up this to 9 because the second time this year I've put a wideout in the queue, and unfortunately it just gives me a running back due to my position limits being less than 9. So it would be nice if they fixed that, but in the meantime, I'm going to fix it on my end. So obviously my position limits here add up to more than 18, and that's by design, so that it can have some leeway. Are you not a fan of the puppy draft? I mean, I did a puppy for you guys the other day, but I think BBM5 is the big boy one. You think my math is wrong about Kansas City? That if Kansas City scored 30, um, that you don't need a Steeler bring back? Okay. This is a big boy stream. It's not what I'm saying. No, I think the puppy's great. I generally do. I see myself drafting 150 fast draft puppy teams? No, but I'll definitely have some stream puppies, and I did a guest one as well. But I like doing the puppy so that people who don't want, not everyone wants to do a $25 draft can still have the opportunity to draft with me. You only have 2 puppy drafts though? Well, I mean, I have like 40 teams on drafters, so I've been focusing there. I got 27 BBM5s, and I'm not going to max the puppy. Like the puppy will fill before I would be ready to put serious entrance. Like the puppy's already 50% filled. Liam, I know you have some tweets on getting plus ROI with a small bankroll like $500 for best ball. Yeah, I'm going to do an article on that. I saw Pete did an article on it too after I mentioned it on stream. So great mind thinks alike. You could check out Pete there. He put a bankroll article out, but I'll have a free one out as well. What kind of contest would you be joining as a small stake best ball player? I think it's good to be honest with yourself when you're determining, this is not financial advice, do what you want, but when you're determining how to invest your money for the best ball season, I think it's good to be honest with yourself. Do you want to do this purely for ROI, meaning you're just strictly trying to make money? Or are you trying to do it for ROI, but also you want entertainment? And then how comfortable are you having a risk of ruin of 0? Meaning, how comfortable are you returning $0 that you invest versus is this your bankroll that you need to have in order to play next year as well? Many people, I'm sure, have a job. So if they invest $500 in best ball and they get back 0, they don't care because they just use their job money and it's entertainment or whatever. If you were doing it for purely ROI, my suggestions would be to try to take advantage of contests that are going to overlay. So that might steer you towards some drafters. I personally couldn't imagine not having at least like one team in the flagship contest, BBM5, the DK Millie, something like that. So I'd put a couple there. I think the puppies are totally fine if you want to get in more volume. And then I would consider shot taking on underdogs historically had like a $75 contest. They've also had, we need 5 more for this BBM5. So edge seekers, you're allowed now. We got to get this bad boy filled. But the DraftKings $100 3 max, I think, is a really great one if you're looking to like shot take a higher take entry. If you wanted to just get in pure volume, obviously things like the Chihuahua and such. I'll definitely have some eliminator streams and weekly winners. Shout out Underdog. They released weekly winners with kind of a bizarre format. Only having it be weeks 1 through 17. People were upset. They just rolled it back and re-released it as it was. So that's here now as well. Let's see. All right, we're filled. We pulled the 103. Shout out to us. Do you play any of the single entry tournaments? Go into it with any different mindset? Well, I think just off the cuff, theoretically, single entry, people are probably a little bit less likely to get a unique combo. So maybe that's something I'd be more willing to do. In general, I kind of view like my best ball teams as like a portfolio where I'm really just trying to get a couple teams to win tournaments, right? And I don't really care what contest it is. So I'm always trying to build a team I think can win across all the tournaments I'm playing. Math about 3. Oh, you weren't talking to me then. So I have a lot of Chase and not a lot of Tyreek. So we're going to take. We really like Chase versus Denver, though. It's great. We'll take a Tyreek team here. I could see Chase flipping Tyreek just based on people being like, oh, Cleveland. In the office watching stream / in the live draft, Thursday rocks. Let's go, Stanko. What up, Nez? Thoughts on CJ Stroud? I feel like he is way overvalued. Would rather have Jordan Love 4 rounds later. Yeah, I mean, guys like CJ Stroud, Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, if he was expensive, even Mahomes. These guys who are in general getting their production more from passing the football and throwing touchdowns versus running in touchdowns like Hurts, Allen, and Lamar does. Some of them are going to smash. Others of them are not going to have good advance rates because you can get very equal production from the guys several rounds later. However, best ball is not just what's your production over the course of a season. I also understand why the market is willing to bet on Stroud taking that leap, right? And being that expensive pocket passer. He has 3 elite weapons and to me was, an elite quarterback last year. If I was starting a franchise, I'd take Stroud over Lamar for sure. So, but, if Stroud's weapons disappoint, if Diggs slows down, if Tank is actually more injured than we know, that will hurt his production. And I mean, ultimately, even if they have meh advance rates for the regular season, if you're a believer enough in their week 17 game, so for Houston, it would be Baltimore, that can right a lot of ships. But historically, like when these pocket passers have a good year the year before, we overdraft them. So like 1 year, Stafford and Brady had a really great year. And then they were like 8th round picks and they didn't do as good because, it takes a couple things coming together. But I understand why the market is confident in some of these guys. And I mean, do I just take Stroud naked? No, I don't. I try not to take any quarterback naked, but I will take some Stroud when I'm going for Houston stacks for sure. Justin Herbert, perfect example. Well, a couple things are happening with Herbert. One, yes, he had a disappointing year last year. 2, people are not optimistic at all about his weapons, understandably. 3, people are not optimistic about the coaching hire and what they believe the philosophy of the offense will be, also understandably. I'm in general a little bit more willing to bet on Herbert, but I understand why there's a lot of fear around him. Thanks for being here, by the way, guys. We are growing fast, so please do subscribe on the road to 5K. All right, so we got to take Nick Chubb here because we took Tyreek. Just kidding. Let's go with Kyron. I still think number 2 running, like if everyone remains healthy, I still think Kyron could be the number 2 running back in the whole fantasy football landscape. So definitely want to be mixing him in. And how do you not love his matchup? Like the Cardinals put a lot of resources into their defense, but not a lot of expensive resources, right? Like they were drafting rookies and such. So that's still a defense I want to target. What up? Appreciate the disbanded brotherhood almost always comes in with just like a period or something here, just helping the algorithm. I see you. Kyron's ADP naturally lines with McBride's too. Kind of nice. Yeah, let's build out this Miami thing. I think an Achane Tyreek combo is pretty nice in the sense that, I mean, in theory, yeah, I do think attacking the Browns on the ground will probably be more the play, and maybe Tyreek has a great, Tyreek plays Houston and San Fran. Maybe he's the guy who goes off weeks 15, 16, allowing me to get a low on Achane to the finals, and then Achane's the guy who wins me the tournament. What up, Devin? How do you feel about the Cardinals offense this year? I'm more optimistic than their win total, for sure, for fantasy. I mean, I like Marvin, I like McBride, and I like Kyler. And I think the running backs are fine to mix in. Shout out. Be sure to check out beatbestball.com. And again, if you missed it, I linked up above this tweet, which has the schedule photos here. I said you should replace the frivolous photos of your family as your lock screen. Shout out 2 Chainz. All right, hey, 2 Chainz, if you're a listener, you're in good company. I'll have a tier video for you guys soon. Last year I put together an article for another site and like targeting my favorite week 17 game stacks. And I think I was money. Like I had Kansas City, Cincy, which dudded. But then my 2 game was Miami, Baltimore, which like Lamar went off. Some Miami pieces went off. I had Dallas, Detroit, which was the key to winning. So Alex Keaton saying, no sane NFL team will allow 50 million quarterback be a game manager. Justin Herbert ADP is worth taking shots, even if weapons are shaky. Yeah, I mean, you could see I have him ranked ahead of Trevor to Goff, but the market doesn't agree with me because they like these weapons more, and it's not just who scores the most points. At the same time, like Greg Roman is a rough OC. He does love his run game. So I just don't think the Chargers also will be good enough that they're going to be able to be just like running, like they're not going to be able to just like do 30 carries a game, I don't think. Foostism asks, would you wait until closer to the start of the season to draft best ball? Well, Foostism, if you read my article, $99 covers you for the whole year. While I'll always draft early, and you should too, that gives some thoughts on why you should draft early, the benefits of drafting late, so you can get all those thoughts there. And the answer is, I would not only draft late. I do think some people like overcorrect week 17 game stacks. This is not good, by the way. What El Cabano did here, just rocking naked Stroud, maybe an auto draft. So T works nice with Tyreek in the sense that I didn't take Chase. But we're gonna get Kincaid here. He has quite a variance where sometimes he'll go like pick 37. A lot of times he's going with the Jets guys, and sometimes he'll even fall to the late fifth. I think the Jets, the Jets have a really good defense on paper, but where you do target them is typically the middle of the field. And the thing about a really good defense, unlike a really bad defense, is a really good defense can lose 3 players and now be terrible. A really bad defense almost certainly does not just turn that around. Josh Allen's futures are so low, only like 3,600 passing yards. Yeah, I think that's like a over fear of the Diggs exit and probably an overreaction to Joe Brady coming in and installing some run game. But just my opinion. I don't understand how T's ADP is 41 when I'm regularly getting him in the 50s. But yeah, I have Kirk and T ranked similar. I'm going to take T again just because I think he plays well with a Tyreek pick. I mean, I saw someone like legitimately say like Josh Allen's rookie year had like a not real NFL supporting cast. Like like terrible. Like probably worse than what New England had last year. It was that bad. And someone was like, these are the stats he had this year. These are the stats he had since Diggs arrived. And someone's like, well, it just depends how, like, maybe he's going to be as bad as he was. Well, no, he's not the same quarterback he was his rookie year. And he's thrown for north of 4,300 yards the past 3 years. So 3,600 is a shockingly low number. Obviously, an injury can happen to anyone, though. Josh Allen was bad his first 2 years. I would say he was not good his first year. I don't think he was that bad his second year. But his wide receiver 1 was like John Brown, you know? Yeah, and I think there's like, the context of Buffalo coming in and establishing the run game is because it was the end of the year and they were thinking they were going to have some cold weather games. This year, though, I think Buffalo so they go at Detroit week 15. That's not a cold weather game. That's a dome. And then they do have 2 home games against New England, who could be terrible, and the Jets, which I mean could be a shootout, right? Like I think the Jets defense is very good, but of course, you lose a couple players, it's not so good. And I would think that getting the passing, like in games that they have the liberty to, I would think getting the passing game kinks ironed out as far as like, is it going to be Curtis Samuel? Is it going to be Coleman? Is it going to be the Kincaid show? Is it going to be Shakir? Would be a priority versus getting the run game established, which they already kind of do. John Brown, Smoke Brown. I mean, guys, John Brown was good, but him and Cole Beasley were the top targets for Josh year 2. And those like the year 1, it was Kelvin Benjamin who literally Josh asked him if he would like run some routes pregame for him to get some practice in, and he told him no. He was out of the NFL the next year. And so and he was also like super fat at that time. And Robert Foster, who don't think he saw work again, like Charles Clay, like this was a rough group. So John Brown and Cole Beasley was like a huge upgrade. And then they got Diggs in there and Emmanuel Sanders. Did Josh play with Sammy Watkins? No. Sammy Watkins was traded out to acquire Josh, partially. Okay. So no real stack sticking out here week 17 for me, which is fine. Yeah, I'm fine with Brian Thomas. And I I think it's most likely that Brian Thomas is third in targets on the team after Ingram and Kirk, not including running back. But I do think Brian Thomas could have, several like 4-target, 120 yards and a touchdown type games. Where if if he's like that Calvin Ridley role, that role almost had like 10 plus touchdowns, and now you got a better O-line. So I like Thomas there. Hopkins is another guy I'm higher on than market. I moved him down a little bit just to kind of because I have like 50% Hopkins or something absurd. And funny enough, his prop line is I think 950 and Calvin Ridley's is only 900. Yeah, why not? Let's build it out. I mean, the Titans defense was just brutal against the pass last year. So we're going double elite tight end. And I think, some people value Ingram higher than Kittle and Pitts, especially on a PPR site, which this is not. And I think that's fine. I also like Ferguson a lot, though. And this almost guarantees that I'm getting, if not, I'm going to get maybe the first target on the Jags, but at least the second target. And I think Trevor had a weird year. Do you have an opinion on whether or not Kirk Cousins will start the whole year over Penix? I think if healthy, Kirk will start the whole year. But I agree it's a little bit queasy when they select this guy number 8 overall. And if the Falcons are bad, well, what incentive is there to play Kirk? If the Falcons have if they're not going to make the playoffs, which seems hard to do in their division, maybe that does happen. I also saw Adam Schefter talk about T. Higgins and that T. Higgins is not going to get the contract he wants, and that if he's nicked up, he could start sitting games, which I mean, obviously was conjecture, but hey, it's out there. Titans didn't do much to get better in the secondary, so it could be the same deal this year. Yeah, I'm putting together my team pages that just goes over all the changes teams had and states this is their scoring last year. So I need to look into it myself, but off my memory, they put a lot of resources into their offense to support Levis, which I think is smart, right? Boo-hoo, you have a bad secondary, you got to find out about your quarterback. Joe Burrow, well, he goes in the 90s sometimes. This man here clearly says, you guys are stacking week 17. How about double naked quarterback? This dude is for sure winning this pod. Like 100%. Let's pull this up because this is an abysmal group. It might have been 2019. I was at 2020 was the COVID season, so maybe it was 2018. I was at Josh Allen's first game. I don't go to many NFL games, but I was at his first game. In which Nathan Peterman started the game, and it was against the Ravens, and it was an absolute blowout, and also rain like just stormed the whole time. Is AJ Dillon draftable? I mean, I will not be drafting much of him, but yeah, I think any running back with the pulse is draftable. You know, he's probably the running back 3, but it's possible he's the 2. And also, pick are we at here? 94. We'll add Curtis here. Adding on to our Bills thing. Targeting a murky target order situation. So no need to go QB now. And wide receiver is a rough group. So let's take Zach Moss. He's not a guy I've got a bunch of. I've got way more Chase Brown, but I think, Moss could be an absolute smash, right? Like he could be Mostert levels of good if he's just the goal line role and whatnot. I like betting on Brown as like the more explosive player, but I definitely want to be mixed there. And it's nice that we have 2 teammates in Miami, 2 teammates in Cincinnati, 2 teammates in Jacksonville, 2 teammates in Buffalo. So we got these game stacks built out without the quarterbacks. What is your plan of attack on the Browns running back room? I think I'll have an article out this week on the ambiguous situations around the NFL and how I'm playing them. But in short, I'm not drafting a lot of Nick Chubb at the current moment. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Chubb smashes, but just seems tough for him. I would rather click on Tom Brady than AJ Dillon ever again. I understand it, man. I mean, like, AJ Dillon, it's not like the guy's been injured, right? And he's not even been good in like a goal line role, which we had hoped he would be. Did have 600 yards last year, but I think, they added a 3rd round rookie in Lloyd, who I like. And they added Josh Jacobs, who compared to Aaron Jones is like a bill of health. Like Jacobs doesn't miss many games. So, and AJ Dillon, I think he got like $1 million or something. Dillon has sexy legs. That's enough for me to draft. He's got big quads. Any bets on which running back gets traded to Dallas? I doubt any. I think it's more likely. I mean, maybe they'll do this like you give me your sixth and I get your seventh, but I think it's more likely that like they'll just pick up someone on cuts. And I don't like. I mean, I think Zeke and Dowdle is like a room that's fine. Like Jacksonville. I think they could add a RB2 after training camp for sure. Once Chubb hits the 120s, I'm buying every chance I get. You go for it, man. He's going to be there. His ADP at 108 is not worth the risk to me. Like with this Cincy stack, do I feel the need to add a Denver player? Definitely not. Right? Like Cincinnati is a team that could absolutely smash the Broncos, and they don't need the Broncos' help to do it. So Tua went. I'm just going to grab Trevor here and see what happens. I think ideally I would have gone Trevor and Tua. But at least getting one is nice. And I'm done at tight end here. I feel great about this trio of running backs. Trevor, a fine, serviceable quarterback. And, we're going to add more volume here, but we got a high-end wideout. We got a wideout that can get like 10 touchdowns in a good year. Maybe Brian Thomas can too. Samuel is a little bit of an unknown in Buffalo, but, playing with the best quarterback he's ever played with. You think Miles Sanders gets cut? Maybe. They don't save any money doing so. Yeah, why not? Let's just take Shakir here. If at least one of Samuel or Shakir becomes the wide receiver one in Buffalo, even if they're both like closer to the two, I think you're happy with that. If Josh Palmer did get drafted, I maybe would have selected him and then taken one of Trevor or Herbert here. So not going to be a draft where I probably end up with a ton of Week 17 game stacks. The expensive Titans have already been drafted. There's not a ton of options for the Jets. There's not a ton of players on the Broncos I want. There's some options on the Cardinals. There's some options on the Browns. Chubb went 71 in your DK draft just now. Yeah, I can almost guarantee, even though it shouldn't be this way, that Chubb will be higher drafted on DraftKings. You can't wait for Jonathan Brooks to drop once he goes on PUP. Yeah, he won't drop for me, but and Underdog doesn't like show Q tags unlike DraftKings. Let's read the latest on Nick Chubb's health. I mean, one thing going for Chubb is he got hurt at the beginning of the season. The coach said, he's here, he's attacking his rehab. That's the best way I can put it. When he's ready, he'll be ready. Well, that doesn't tell us anything. Nick Chubb turning 29 this year. Are you high on Jaden Daniels or nah? Definitely. If a quarterback, I think, is going to run for close to 800 yards, I'm into him. I was into Trey Lance. You know, it doesn't always work. I was into Justin Fields some years. Doesn't always work. I mean, look, there's a lot working against Chubb. The injuries, his age. I thought Jerome Ford performed well, who I would have taken here. I think the signing of Deontay Foreman can be read as, hey, we're going to roll with Ford and Foreman to begin the year. If we get Chubb, great. If not, these two will do. On the other hand, it could be, hey, we don't care about Foreman. Let's run him down. See you later. And then it will be Chubb later in the year. He gets drafted around guys, too, who he goes ahead of Mostert, where, we saw the case for Mostert. Thanks for inspiring me to draft some unique drafts. Tuesday, I shocked the flock with taking Puka 101. I think Puka's a great player to take at the 101 to try to get unique. So we have a rogue Kirk here. But I like Rico. I'm not convinced Zeke should go ahead of Rico on a half-point PPR site. I think it's possible Zeke is this boring RB1. But it's also possible Rico has the goal line role at the least. Taking a stab at another good team as well. Let's take Mooney. In an ideal world, Kirk Cousins makes it back to pick 166. Is that likely? No. I think Atlanta has a fantastic Week 17 matchup versus the Commanders. I think the upside hope for Darnell Mooney is that he is Jordan Addison for them. Not in ability, but as far as target order, So you would say Drake is Jefferson, you would say Pitts is Hawkinson, and you would say Mooney is Addison, with Rondale Moore being Brandon Powell. And we saw that role have plenty of value. So, and we've seen Mooney be good before. He just wasn't good. Um, like he was not good last year. He's not good the year before. Is that him? Is it Justin Fields? In some way, I thought his game kind of would mesh well with Fields, right? Like running down the field, getting just like catching the ball downfield. Clearly, it didn't. So maybe he's just not that good, or maybe he can be a poor man's Addison, which that has value. Wait, Jordan Matthews is on the Panthers right now today? I think he's a tight end now. He was on the Bills for a bit. Yeah, he is a tight end now. Staying in Carolina. How old is Jordan Matthews? 31. I don't know. I don't know what he's doing over there, but so unfortunately, this guy just rocked Naked Kirk. You can almost always guarantee, by the way, too, that when someone is shown to go unstacked QBs, they're a lock to add a third. Like this guy was always going to add a third QB, even though he doesn't need one. Could be auto drafting, but I doubt it. Nah, he was on the Bills practice squad for a bit, Jordan Matthews, and I don't know. I think he was originally traded to Buffalo in the trade for the corner who was good, Roby or something. I don't remember. How do you feel about owning a team's wide receiver 1+2 and trying to do it with multiple teams, same draft? I see us locking up points. Yeah, I like it if it's an offense we like, right? Like clearly, I don't have Josh Allen here, but I do have Shakir, Samuel, and Kincaid. I'm okay with that. I don't have Tua, but I do have Tyreek and Achane, two guys who catch passes. I'm okay with that. I don't have Joe Burrow, but I do have T. Higgins and Zach Moss. Obviously, the running back is even nicer because it leverages off the QB. But would I be okay owning like Kupp and Puka and no Stafford? Yes. Might go 3 QB with me not getting any stacks. And might stop at 4 running back. Kind of like an obtuse, hyper fragile build. But probably going to add a 5th running back, 2 QBs, and then 2 wideouts. So like a 3-5-8-2. So we'll go Gibson as our 5th and final running back. I think naked Deshaun was an option too, just with this Miami thing I have built out. Unfortunate that Luke McCaffrey goes. But I guess that makes sense. This guy has Daniels. Because I was planning on going him with kind of like this Atlanta thing, a little mini bring back. Yeah, okay. Let's take Adam Thielen. I don't think the gap between Adam Thielen at pick 171 and Deontay Johnson at pick 84 is all that logical. In theory, Thielen should not be as big of a player down the stretch. He's an old player. He faded down the stretch last year, but he also just showed a great connection with Bryce Young and was an amazing fantasy asset. They did add Xavier Legette, which complicates things as well, because now he's competing with potentially two um two targets who could be legit, target grabbers versus just no one. But still, I think Adam Thielen should have some games, even on his bad offense. Is it crazy to think that Shakir's ADP should be going much higher? Shakir crushed late in the season and was one half receiver or one out of two receivers to score on L'Jarius Sneed last year. I actually think his ADP is going to be going down because people are going to read into the MVS signing as like, oh, how does Shakir see the field now? Which, I mean, if I had to guess the rotation, it would be like Shakir playing pure slot, Coleman playing outside, Kincaid running the tight end routes, and then Samuel like maybe running a stretch the field role and kind of like alternating with Shakir in the slot. As far as if Shakir should be going higher, I understand why he's not, right? Like there's uncertainty around him. I have him ranked in this group of players here, and it's totally possible. Like he has a better season than Samuel. And it's totally possible that both Samuel and Shakir have a better season than Keon Coleman. Like at Keon Coleman's price, unless he is getting 10 targets a game, occasionally and getting at least I don't know, 6 touchdowns, he's going to be a negative advance rate player. Just compared to someone like even DeAndre Hopkins, who we can probably guess will be around 1,000 yards, around 5 touchdowns. But, should he still go here because he has upside? Yes. I see him taken ahead of Rome Odunze sometimes. I think that's crazy. Even though Rome's competing with these other guys, Rome went at the 109 in the real NFL draft. Stanko, I'm a generous man, but as far as if I'm going to help you beat me in the draft you joined, the answer is always no. I'm not going to help you. You got to do this on your own, brother. And you ain't getting Gino when this guy says, "Welcome to the Fant Show." I guess good news, Thielen sets up a stack, if I'm so inclined. Let's grab Douglas first. Be done at wideout. And probably end this puppy with 2 QBs. Do you feel Cincy stacks are a bit fragile this year with Burrow's wrist? I am personally not afraid of Burrow's wrist. I'm not a doctor. Vegas doesn't seem afraid of his wrist either, though. And I think in general, we should attack moments of fear rather than be afraid of them. So I think Drake May is a clear pick for me here. I got Gibson. I got Douglas. The only why does he go after guys like Derek Carr and Geno Smith, who, I mean, like Carr has shown almost no ceiling in his career? Well, it's because people are afraid he might not start the year. Does he have more upside than Carr in theory? 1,000,000%. Any quarterback selected at the 103 in the real NFL draft has more theoretical upside to me than like a 14-point per game player in Carr. Does he have downside? Of course, right? That's why he's here. So kind of a weird one where, I planned to create some week 17 game stacks, but don't think I'm going to end up with a single one. And that's okay, right? Because I really am not like, it should be something you're breaking ties with. I think there are some games on the schedule, maybe a Baltimore Houston, where you go out of your way to make it happen, right? You're like, okay, I'll reach around and grab Zay Flowers here because I really want to stack him with Diggs and Nico. There are other games where you don't need to force it. And, okay, I had 2 Miami players. If Jerome Ford made it back to me, I probably would have taken him instead of Rico Dowdle. I didn't. Instead, I got Rico Dowdle. That's fine. I got 2 Cincinnati players. And I just passed on getting any Denver players. That's okay. Could I have added like a Jaleel McLaughlin? Sure. I didn't. So even though I don't have any week 17 game stacks, I do have a lot of team stacks, which is a week 17 game stack in its own sense, right? I have the Bengals being good against the Broncos. I have the Dolphins being good against the Browns. I have Kyron as a standalone against a bad defense. Like, I'm okay with that. I got the Patriots scoring some points against a potentially bad Chargers defense. Like, they were really bad last year. I don't think they put too much resources into fixing it. I have the Bills scoring some points against the Jets. So in general, I do try to get minis, but it just didn't fall that way this draft, and that's okay. Is Liam a Patriot believer this year? Last year I was not at all. This year, yeah, I'm optimistic that they can be serviceable. I think they're being treated like they were last year's team, where, they made moves to show us that they're not that team, right? They added Drake May. They added, I think their O-line is a problem, but they added a bunch of wideouts, which they desperately needed to do. Okay. And yeah, I like some of these other quarterbacks more than Bryce Young, but I'm okay with just adding Thielen as a stack. Like, what am I going to do with Naked McCarthy, Naked Nix? Naked Jones is tempting. I'm going to make that pick just in case I have my position limit set to 2, which I do. So yeah, is it my favorite group of QBs? No. But I think Trevor offers upside. I think last year was like a bad year for Trevor. And I think Drake May offers upside. And I don't really think Bryce Young does. But, hey, you want to be the first quarterback to be bad his rookie year. And they've made moves at least. Like they added to their O-line, they added and they added wide receivers. So they're at least trying not to be terrible, right? Where they put a lot of money in the guard. They're not playing the toughest defense in the world in Tampa. So 3 stacked quarterbacks at the end of the day, hard to complain about it. I don't know if Drake May is going to see the field week 1. I think it would be the smart thing to do. I don't see the reason to play Jacoby Brissett, but could happen. 2 elite tight ends, don't feel the need to add a third there. Much rather add a third QB. 2 running backs who could be smashes from a weekly upside sense. Zach Moss could definitely be underpriced and smashed. Rico could be underpriced and smashed. Gibson could have way more of a role than we think. The wide receiver room has a mix, right? 2 shots at an ambiguous, valuable role in Buffalo. A rookie. 2 guys who have shown to be good in the past. One had significant ADP discount. Mooney, just kind of a stab at the third target in Atlanta. Thielen, you hope he's closer to like the second target or 1B than the clear third, but that's possible. Douglas, you hope he holds down the slot there at the least. And then, 2 elite tight ends. So hope you guys enjoyed this team. It's not as pretty when you don't get any, let's look at, this is the first one I did after the schedule. Let's see if I got any here. So I went Daniels and Stafford. I went JT, Chase Brown, Jerome Ford, Rico Dowdle, Chuba Hubbard, Will Shipley. I got, so I got a Stafford, Puka, Trey McBride, and DeMarcus Robinson. So we got that game stacked up. We got Ridley and Brian Thomas Jr. as a mini. We got Jerome Ford and Jonnu Smith as a mini. And we got Devonta Smith and Rico Dowdle as a mini. And then we just have Daniels stacked up with Terry and Sanat, and we don't have any Atlanta bringbacks in what could be a high-paced game. And we don't have any giant bringbacks. We also have Will Shipley for that Dallas-Philly game. So clearly have more mini stacks here than this one, but I still like the team overall, even though it's not purely Week 17. Who was your biggest fantasy bust last season? Let me think about that. I mean, it depends on what round, right? Because at the top of drafts, I would say is more of a bust. And there's different contexts to bust. Whereas I drafted a lot of Calvin Ridley, who had an okay season, but not a good enough season to justify his draft capital, and almost had a great season in real life, but just again, he probably had 6 touchdowns wiped away by 3 yards. 140 watching, 8 likes. Come on now, guys. Come on. Which elite QB outside of Josh do you think you'll have the most of? Let's say the group is Josh Hurts, Lamar, Pat, Stroud, Richardson. Penny was a bust. I definitely went in at. Yes. He was a pure zero I drafted. He's a guy I drafted early in the year, but not late at all. Forgot about him. I'm not leaning into as many of those situations where let's say a Penny versus a Marshawn Lloyd bet. Both of them can bust. However, there's almost no world to me where Marshawn Lloyd does not at least get an attempt to see the field. Whereas Penny didn't really even get an attempt to see the field. Of this group, I want all these QBs. I've not been taking quite as many pure elites, and it's kind of nice that you're getting I mean, last year people I had Josh as QB1, but people were drafting Mahomes as QB1. I don't know what they were smoking, and like commonly. Um Josh and Hurts, I think, are real nice at cost. I think Lamar has a nice playoff schedule, so I want to start getting more of him, even though I've not. And I don't value him in the same tier as Josh and Hurts. Mahomes with his new weapons is tempting. Stroud with his weapons is tempting. And Richardson just, I like Richardson, but like Daniel seems like a similar bet. Austin Eckler, I actually drafted nearly 0% of Eckler and Travis Kelce last year. So like historically, I've been someone who fades first round picks if I think they're bad values. I just don't think that exists this year, right? Like, why did I fade Eckler and Kelce? They were old as hell. And there are like, who are the running backs in the first round this year? Bijan, Brees, and CMC. That's not the same, you know? You're not a fan of Marvin Harrison Jr.? I like him. I think that's the type of guy I want to bet on. Yeah, of my group, Gibson is the closest comp to Penny. I almost mentioned him because of that, but at the same time, he's not, right? Because like with a lot of confidence, I feel the 1 and 2 running back in New England is Ramondre Gibson. Last year, there was a lot of talk about Gainwell. They added Swift and Penny. So that wasn't quite the same to me. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me today. I will be back. What's today? Maybe tomorrow, maybe next week. Make sure you hit the like. Check out beatbestball.com. Have a lot of exciting articles that are going to be coming out there to help you win at best ball. Got fresh ranks for Underdog and DraftKings in there as well. Appreciate each and every one of you for being here. Click that subscribe button. Help me. Puka feels kind of bad in the first round. Absolutely not. Puka could go for 1,400 yards. That's a first round wideout. Anyways, peace out, guys.